Okay, so Modelo Prison, raid on Modelo Prison. This is actually on Discovery Channel, I think on History Channel. They've declassified it. So that was the rescue of Kurt Muse out of Modelo Prison in 1989 in Panama. And
you were involved?
I was a breacher on it. I'm the guy that actually blew the doors in on the annex on top of the prison and went down to get him out. So as we were coming in, if you can just imagine, we had a hit time of midnight on the December 20th. And about 7 hours out, we got intelligence that we had been compromised. And again, you know what they say, loose lips sink ships. Mm-hmm. So a couple guys, you know, that lived there, you know, called home to mommy and daddy, said, "Mommy, daddy, something bad's going to happen tonight. If I don't ever see you again, I love you." And like, you know, and then some other guy went down and told all his Panamanian friends and family around the canal, "Hey, you guys don't want to be around here tonight. Something's going to happen," right? So, okay, that just alerted the enemy that something's going to happen tonight, right? And so we knew we were compromised because our snipers were already deployed. They're in the wood line, the jungles, and they're watching. And they're like, all of a sudden, Modelo Prison is being reinforced with Panamanian Defense Forces, Dignitary Battalion, militia. They're literally setting up 50 caliber machine guns on all the corners. They're reinforcing the commandancy, the headquarters across the street, Noriega's military headquarters. There's a lot of activity, and that activity started to draw in civilians because they wanted to come down, like they were literally coming in with lawn chairs and stuff, waiting for the Mardi Gras parade or something, the Rose Bowl parade. Like what? And they're sitting on the sidewalks drinking and playing music, and suddenly you've got thousands of people around the target, right? And the target's being hardened. And we got to go get in there and get them, right? Because the reason we had to go is because, oh yeah, the 82nd Airborne Division and Ranger Battalion are in flight already on the way, right? So there's a big aerial signature in the sky.
Timing.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're on the way. We can't turn them around because now the mission will be compromised, and it's a game changer. So we've got to go. And what ended up happening was all we could do is slide the hit time, H hour, to 20 minutes to the right, 0020 hours. And we went in, and I remember I was on a little bird, it's a little MH6. You've probably seen the pictures of the small helicopter, like a flying egg. It's got the little pods on the outside, two guys sitting on the outside.
Yeah, we'll put a picture of it in the corner of the screen.
Yeah.
So you'll pull it up.
And so I'm on the first bird. There's four of us going to come in and we're going to land on the roof. And then I'm going to get off with my breaching charges. My job was to run over to an annex, which is about 10 by 10 square. I had a door on the top, a steel door. According to CIA sources, it was a solid steel door. So I built the explosive charges to, breach that door. And so I run up to the door. Well, let me back up. So as we're landing, okay, because of the weight of the operators and the equipment we're taking in, which wasn't a lot, by the way, the initial helicopters, the original MH6s, the engines were the same engines they use for irrigation machines, like in farmer fields, right? It's a motor that just sprays, and that's what's holding us up in the air. I'm like, holy shit, they put propellers on it, we're flying this thing. I didn't know that, right? And I got a briefing from the pilots on that. And so we were actually maxed out with 4 operators, all our body armor, weapons and stuff like that. They're like, we got to chop weight so this thing stays aloft. And we were literally stripping avionics out of the helicopter. Okay, you don't need that. You don't need this. Get that out, get that out, get that out. And in fact, 2 of the helicopters of the 4, like, hey, you know what? We don't need 2 pilots. You're out of here. We had 2 helicopters with 1 pilot and 2 with 2 pilots. All of the operators, we literally didn't even bring any water in. We just tried to trim as much weight as we could so we could land these helicopters. And it still wasn't, we weren't able to just land them. We had to actually sink the helicopters in very slowly onto the roof. So as we're approaching, and we're literally sinking the helicopter on the 4th story of this prison, I remember, at this point, all hell has broken loose. There's gunfire everywhere. I mean, people are dying. It's like complete chaos. And I noticed as we're coming down, I saw a group of about 4 women and running out in the street, a couple of them holding babies. And in the middle of the 4 women was a man, and he was part of the what they call the Dignitary Battalion. He was a militiaman, right? And so I can remember him very vividly. He was wearing blue jeans, a white guayabera, brown type of hiking boots. He had an AK-40S short AK-47. I still remember he was probably about 5'8", 190 pounds. And how can I remember all the details? Because when something's very emotional, you tend to remember it much longer, all the details, right? And so this is a pretty emotional period right now. People are dying and shit's happening. And so as they're running out in the center of the street, I think probably the distance from my barrel to his noggin was about maybe 30 yards. And he had his AK-47 up, and he was using the women and kids as he was backing up as a shield. And he hadn't leveled the weapon at me yet in my helicopter because he was still kind of moving. And as they were crossing the street, there was a cemetery. And the cemetery had like a 4-foot wall, but the entranceway was like an arch that you could walk through. And they were all kind of moving to that together in a cluster. And I already had them in my sights. I had an 8.2000. I had the dot on his forehead. I could have took the shot, but I didn't take the shot. And the reason I didn't take the shot because I was able to, with all the excitement, I was still able to discern. Listen, if you take that shot, that round will go through his melon and it will probably hit the woman and child behind him. Okay. And so, and I said, he's not an immediate threat. Although the weapon's up, it's not shouldered, it's not leveled. He's not taking aim yet. He's still moving. I said, I still have time.
You're able to make that whole calculation.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what you're trained to do, right? That's why you're selected. So.
And how far away were you again?
Maybe 30 yards max.
But that's kind of, and you were able to tell. Wow.
Yeah, and I'm at a defilade position, shooting down at him as the helicopter's sinking. I hadn't shot yet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not him yet, and so.
But that's how it's going to let. You're basically, it's like a drive-by.
Yeah, and plunging fire going straight down. So, but something told me, man, just wait. He's not going to shoot yet. But when they go through that arch, somehow I knew. I don't know how I knew, but somehow I knew that the women with the babies would all button hook to the left and he would button hook to the right and he would come over that wall. And damned if he didn't. That's exactly what happened. He came over the wall. Now he brought the weapon up and leveled it and, I was waiting for him. So, I sent him, a hello and a goodbye. So, and then the helicopter landed.
I'll show you what hell looks like, boy.
But where I was going with all that was you have to be able to make those critical decisions under pressure, under stress, and you got to make good decisions, right? Because you have to live with them, right? If I took that shot and let's say the helicopter buckled and I hit, any number of those women or kids, I got to live with that, And you have to ask yourself, was it worth taking that shot at that moment in time? And sometimes the answer is yes, because if I don't take that shot and he shoots my helicopter down, guess what? You may have 4 or 5 fathers on this aircraft whose kids need them, right? And boom, so, it's, you got to weigh all that out. That's a tough decision to make,
my God,
and there's no right answer for it other than, the man on the ground, you got to make that. And this is why we go through this very intense training, to make sure that we can make those, those high pressure decisions, especially when, the fight or flight reflex is setting in and you got tunnel vision, you loss of depth perception, tachycardia, and all these things are kicking in. You've got to be able to work through all of that and still make a good shot under pressure and still keep a circle of awareness about you and know what's going on. I still have to be aware that, hey, I'm landing on a roof and there might be a dude down there getting ready to shoot me in the face when I get off the helicopter, right? So there's a lot of the process at one time. And this is why, again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. They picked the right man, not the best man. And this is why it's one of the most difficult selection courses in the world. It ain't all about being physical. It's very physical. But the whole idea is to break you down physically. No matter how physical you are, they're going to break you down. They want to see how this functions under pressure.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and so we have this pulled up right here. This was Operation Acid Gambit. Mm-hmm. Who was this guy? Carl Muse?
Kurt Muse. So Kurt Muse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Kurt Muse was a businessman. Okay, that's what he'll tell you. Living in Panama. But, it's not hard to figure out what was really going on. So he's a businessman. He started a Rotary Club, amateur radios, blah, blah, blah. But they were doing, signal intelligence. They were basically spoofing Noriega's communications. And then finally what happened was Noriega's military intelligence started to triangulate where he was emitting, because they kept moving the transmitter, right? And they finally caught up with him at some point and they arrested him for espionage. Okay. And he ended up in Modelo prison. So he was literally locked up on the second floor. He had a security there the entire time.
How big is the prison?
It's pretty good size. It was 4 stories. Actually, there's a picture on the internet also of the prison itself. It's 4 stories, and Of course, like all prisons, it was overcrowded. They had more people in there that they could fit in there, but they fit them all in there anyways.
How big's the staff approximately?
Well, at the time, they had 64 guards on duty, and they reinforced it with about another 60 Panamanian Defense Force soldiers because they knew we were coming. So we had 120 shooters on the ground level waiting for us.
Is it public how many people you had on this mission?
I think it is because they did a documentary on it. So it was 23. 25.
25 of you guys against 125 of them.
Just there in the ground.
They're on the ground with the fortress.
Yeah. So there's another, so I'll add to the story, right? Because it's actually a really kind of cool story. So we land, I run up, I put the breaching charge on the doors. We finally breach the doors. I breach the doors. We go in, we go down to second level. The interrogator was given instructions that if anything happens outside the prison, gunfire, et cetera, he was to immediately go in and kill Kurt Muse. Done something.
Wait.
Yeah, he was going to execute him immediately.
Oh, the Panamanian.
Yeah, they were to execute him, right? And so,
and what? Hold on a second. If this guy's like an expatriate trying to overthrow a government, why are we trying to rescue this dude?
Well, there was no proof that that's what he was doing. Right? He was a businessman, right? And so
sounds like he had some friends.
Well, he may have, right? And so he knows the truth. But all we know is he's an American. And he's being locked up, and there was other incidents, right? So everybody's going, oh, there we go, starting wars. Well, actually, at that point, up to this point, they'd already killed several Americans for no reason at all. They shot a second lieutenant on the street, and several other people. Yeah, in Panama, right? Noriega had lost his mind at this point, so they were actually now targeting Americans everywhere. And so this is one of the reasons we decided we need to go in there. And we knew Kurt Muse was in prison. We're like, let's get this guy out. He's an asset as well. So that particular mission was the spearhead for the entire operation. We led with that operation. We had to get him out first before everybody else came in, the paratroopers, the Rangers, and so forth and so on. So we initiated the assault, so to speak, the invasion, if you want to call it that. The invasion. Yeah, what it is. We invaded the country, right?
Sounds like a Sylvester Stallone movie.
Well, think about it. They call it Just Cause, right? So it was a just cause. I don't know. Anyways, I'm not here to question all that. All I know at the end of the day is I know what they did. I know what the PDF was doing. They tortured a lot of people. They hurt a lot of people. They killed a lot of people, even their own. It was not a good regime at all.
Hey guys, it's come to my attention that many of you are unaware that we have multiple other channels on YouTube and have for a while in at least 2 cases. So the first channel is at Julian Dorey Clips, which we've been posting on for over a year. It has mid-form clips and short-form clips going out every single day, and it is huge to help us in the algorithm when those clips do well. So please go over there and subscribe. The link is in the description. The second page is at Julian Dorey Daily, which is a brand new page with different editors posting exclusive content that is also mid-form and short-form clips. That link is in the description. And finally, we have a page called Best of JDP, which we put on ice for a while, but we just hired another editor to bring back. It is a shorts-only page. He will be making shorts exclusively for that channel. Once again, the link is in the description. You can check out all 3 down there in the description, and I hope to see you guys subscribe. Thank you.
So, now we're in the building. We make it to the second floor, and here's an interesting story. So the interrogator lost his nerve, and I guess he wasn't, he was quaking in his boots, not sure what's going on, but he knew something was going on. There's a lot of gunfire going on right now, a lot of explosions. And as one of their teams breached the room where the interrogator was sitting, he got up and he ran into a shower stall. And he had a handgun, and he literally positioned himself in the shower stall with a weapon mounted up, a handgun, fake trained on the door, waiting for the first Delta operator to come through it. The first Delta operator came through it, who's no longer with us, was a guy named James. James saw him run in there. James followed him in there. James shot him 4 times in the chest. The guy never got his round off. Dropped him right there with a car 15. Speed, surprise, violence of action, right there it was. 3 tenets of combat. And so, so Muse was alive. We breached the jail cell door, got him out, put him on a helicopter.
Is he shitting himself?
Yeah. And he should have been. And then what happened really was bad because.
What took you guys so long?
Yeah. No, he was happy. He was a happy camper that he was getting out of there because he was looking at probably going to get executed or never get out of prison for a very long time, if at all. So at this point.
Imagine being in a Panamanian prison.
Yeah, I could think of worse prisons to be in too. By the way.
I'm sure,
yeah,
but that's not a good one.
Yeah,
that's
no,
not
it's-
high on
it's
my
not.
list.
No, it's not.
know?
You know, anywhere, any of the third world countries, for sure. I live in Indonesia. I know. Yeah, no. So, yeah, yeah. My dogs probably live better than some of these people do in some of
Yeah.
these jails, man. But, anyways, so my team is now on the third level. I'm laying on a balcony and I'm engaging across the courtyard. There's Panamanian forces on the other side shooting back at us. We're shooting back at them. And the guard towers, the barbershop, blah, 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 blah. And it's pitch black and it's so much noise and flashes of light. There's a blackout now. It's just total chaos. And as I'm laying there, we're lined up waiting to go to the roof and the helicopters are going to come back and pick us up. All right, the 4 helicopters, the little birds. And you could hear them buzzing. And they had to land 2 by 2. So what I didn't know was Kurt was the first guy out. That team brought him out first.
How many guys are on the ground in the prison with you?
Well, we had guys on support positions, maybe a total of about 12 inside there, right? And so they get him out. They pack him up, put helmet on him, body armor, pack him in the middle of a helicopter. They fly off. As they fly off the roof, they get shot down and they crash into an alley, right? So we don't know that yet. We didn't know that happened. I'm laying downstairs on the second floor. I'm shooting away, and I'm waiting for somebody to tap me and go, okay, let's go. Time to move. And nothing's happening. And I can hear helicopters coming and going. I'm like, okay, should we be leaving here soon? And so I remember reaching back with my hand to find my teammate, and I don't feel nothing. And then I reach back with my leg, and I start sweeping the floor, trying to feel somebody's foot or something. And I realized they're already gone. They forgot I was laying on the floor. They couldn't see me because it's so dark and all the gunfire. They literally left me inside the prison. And they're on the roof getting on the helicopters, and I'm laying there, and I can hear the Panamanians coming up the stairs. I can hear all the glass break. I can hear them talking in Spanish, blah, 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 and they're coming up to fight, And I'm laying there and go, holy shit, they left me in the prison. So I get up, and I run like a scalded dog up the stairs, run out on the roof, and thank God there's a helicopter still sitting there. And I run over to my seat, but somebody else is sitting in it. And I'm like, we're like, it's my seat, and now I'm starting to panic.
Fuck off the helicopter.
And I don't know where the confusion set in. And finally, he realized he was on the wrong helicopter. He got up and ran back to his helicopter, and I got my seat back, and we flew off. We were supposed to be the last helicopter out of 15 helicopters. No, I'm sorry. We were supposed to be the first helicopter. No, sorry, the last helicopter out of 15 to land at Howard Air Force Base. We were the only helicopter to come back, and we're landing and go, where's everybody at? And we had what's called JMAU. It's basically a joint medical unit. They were already set up, all the doctors, everything. They're all standing on the on the tarmac, hands crossed, waiting for us to come in, ready for casualties, and we're the only helicopter lands. And my team leader looks at me and goes, you guys stay here, hold on. He runs over there and talking, blah, 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 blah. And he comes back. He goes, okay, put a fresh magazine in. We're going to go back in. Precious cargo just got shot down. And I'm like, oh, shit. Now I got scared. I wasn't scared before that, but now I'm scared because I know where we just came from. We had stirred the hornet's nest. You know what a 50 caliber tracer looks like when it's coming at you?
Nope.
A flaming basketball. Yeah. And like they're coming at us underneath our freaking helicopter. I'm lifting my legs and you go, holy shit, And guess what? They weren't
Do you
even.
have the handlebar back then?
No. I couldn't really grow much. I was still pretty young back then. I had a little blonde thingy. Everybody
didn't
thought I
have
was Chuck
you
Norris.
didn't have
I had
this?
the Chuck Norris look back then. Everybody thought I was Chuck Norris.
But this is so good.
Yeah, I know.
This is good.
We'll pretend like I had it.
I want to pretend. Let's keep going.
But yeah, so anyways, I'm like, oh my God, So we start spinning up, get ready to go back, and then we start seeing other helicopters come back. And then we got the word that one of our ground units had recovered the crashed helicopter. They had taken casualties, and the only guy that actually didn't get hurt was Kurt Muse. If you read the story, and by the way, it's in my book, not again trying to put a plug in it, but American Badass.
Link in description.
Yeah, and like these documentaries. So what happened was when the helicopter crashed, it was sitting on its side. Hinges were still running, rotors were running. A couple of guys on one side had been shot. One of the other guys, James, the guy that killed the interrogator, came off the pod, and we're all tied in. He was swung underneath the skid. The skid took his feet, his toes off one of his feet. Then my team leader, he was knocked unconscious. Kurt Muse gets out. He thinks everybody's dead. It's just him now. So he grabs my assistant team leader's pistol, and he's going to he's going to fight for himself. And as he does that, he starts to stand up into the rotor blade. And my assistant team leader sees it, jumps up and grabs him and pulls him down. As he does that, he takes the rotor strike to the head in the process. Literally shaves the helmet off of his head, knocks him out.
Oh.
And, so now everybody's unconscious, right? And then luckily, the quick reaction force that was on standby, they rolled in with APC and they picked everybody up and hauled them off.
APC?
Armored Personnel Carrier, sorry. For you non-military
No, I'll
types.
stop you when you do it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, they call them M113s at the time, little like square box-looking tanky things. But the irony of it is, Tom, my assistant team leader on the team, that was his second helicopter crash in a month. He on the rehearsal.
Survived both.
Well, he actually had 3. So the first one was a hard landing. He got banged up pretty bad on that one for the rehearsals for the attack, for the rescue. Then the second one, he gets shot down. He's on medication for that thing, for the head injury. When we go back 5 months later, we're in the Panama, in the Darien jungle, which, by the way, is all over the news with, illegals coming across here. We were actually in the Darien jungle, and we're getting ready to go fly and do another mission, and our helicopter crashes again, a Black Hawk.
Who the fuck is driving this helicopter?
They're different helicopters, but it's Task Force 160. Actually, we're alive because of the pilots. They're that good. This particular helicopter had a catastrophic failure of the number 1 engine. And we had,
That'll do it.
we had an auxiliary tank with another 400 gallons worth of jet fuel inside the helicopter. We had 15 packs, personnel equipment, 4 crew. We were pretty heavy. And as we were flying away, the number 1 engine went out. We lost lift, hit a tree, snapped the rotor blades off, and we turned into a giant lawn dart. And went flying through the jungle with no lift, crashed. And that was the one that paralyzed Tom for the rest of his life. In fact, he's still paralyzed to this day. And yeah, it was a bad thing. Actually, there was a couple of guys that were paralyzed. I ended up with a broken back. Spent 5 months in a body cast. But I'm okay. My back still functions, and I'm still standing up. So I'm grateful for that. But that's the life and times of a Delta operator, and that's just one of thousands of stories. Black Hawk Down. There's that. In fact, Black Hawk Down was really about one team out of several teams. So, they couldn't pack it all in one movie. But
wait, you were in that?
I went there. Yeah. So that's another story too. Gary Gordon was my.
Well, please do tell.
Yeah, I won't. Yeah, Gary Gordon was one of the Medal of Honor winners. He was actually on my team in the operator training course, so I knew Gary really well. And the story with him, obviously, he went fast roped in, knowing he's not going to come back out. Him and Randy Shugart, and to save Michael Durant, the pilot, from when the helicopter got shot down. And the coolest part about the story is these guys kept asking for permission 3 times. We'd like to go in. We would like to insert. And the commander's like, what you're asking, right? He goes, yeah, we know what we're asking. We want to go in and insert because the crew might still be alive. So they fast roped in 2 guys, man, 2 snipers. And they were getting it on, man, with a lot of Somalis, a lot of them, and close range combat. And finally got down to Randy was the first one, I believe, to get killed after prolonged engagement. And then it got to the point where Gary, he ran, they pulled Michael Durant, the pilot, out. He was still alive. And they put him like in a little hooch. He had a broken back. He was in bad shape. And Gary ran in over the car 15. He goes, there's 5 bullets left in his weapon, sir. Good luck. And he ran back out there, pulled his pistol. That's all he had left. And he went down pretty hard after that, So that's just one of the stories. Both Randy and Gary got the Congressional Medals of Honor for that, And so it takes cojones, it takes discipline, it takes purpose, man, to do something like knowing, because those guys had families, they had children, and to go down and know that you're going to risk it all to save a man, man, there's no greater love than that, and there's just no greater love than that. And I hate when I hear people, badmouth in the military and we're a bunch of mindless machines to do what the government says. That's a bunch of BS. Okay.
I don't hear a ton of people doing that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have. And I read it quite a bit, and so at the end of the day, hats off, and I'm not saying hats off to me, but to those that have really given it all, man,
oh, yeah.
Those guys. And I've lost a lot of friends. And, man, one of the saddest stories was I had a friend who was a SEAL. Yeah, he's a SEAL. And he and I worked together with the government, right? We'll call it that. And great guy. Him and his wife couldn't have kids, for a long time. He wanted a child so bad. And
is this post career on
this
contract stuff?
this is when I was a government contractor. For the Alphabet company. So one day they were trying to adopt a child. And one day they were able to adopt a child, a little, I believe it was a black baby. I can't remember, from the mom, a little girl. And he was so happy, man. He was just elated. I was really happy for him because I really saw, man, how bad they wanted these kids for over the years. And soon, about a year later, man, he got killed in Iraq. Hit a IED, and he was in what was basically an MRAP. It's an armored car. They're heavy, they're big, and this thing got launched in the air like 60 feet, and killed everybody inside the vehicle. And I'm like, man, he's had a year ago. He adopted this little baby. They were waiting forever, and boom, just like that, he's gone. And there's a lot of stories like that. And again, these are good men doing. And I don't want to say God's work, but they're doing the right thing, man. They're in the process of trying to help other people. When people talk about Iraq and Afghanistan and some of the places I've been to, good people, man, have been oppressed badly, especially by Saddam Hussein. I've seen what he's done. I've been to the palaces, the sex palaces. These guys I've interviewed witnesses. I remember one particular farmer. His property bordered Uday's property, the son of Saddam Hussein, right? And his cows wandered over to their property. There's no fence line there, but his cows were over there. He went to get them back, and they're like, "Hey, get off the property." "Oh, those are my cows." "No, they're our cows now, right?" And he's, "No, those are my cows." "Oh yeah, those are your cows. Watch this." And they literally rounded up his wife and his kids, executed all of them in front of him. Go, whose cows are they now? Right? And they let him live, by the way. And that was his story. And that was quite common to hear stuff like that, Go into a building and you see scuff marks on the walls, right, from shoes, where they were literally hanging kids and adults from the rafters, hanging them, and they were kicking with their feet, and they're off the walls, and the scuff marks were being left on the walls, okay? When you see stuff like that, when you hear stories about how Saddam, these sex palaces he had, they were really big palaces, swimming pools, all kinds of crap. He would literally send his guys out, his henchmen, and they would literally drive down the road and find the best looking girls they could find. I didn't care if they were married or not. And that's a hot one there. Boop, they round them up. And guess what? You're going to be partying at Saddam Hussein's palace tonight, whether you want to or not. And they literally had sex dungeons, chains, handcuffs, cocaine, and they're banging these girls, and and they did whatever they wanted to these people.
If you look right here, just past where this picture on the wall is of the skyline, so a little up, maybe about 10, 15 blocks, I believe, we'll have to double check this. I think it was across from Michael Bloomberg's townhouse or whatever it is in Manhattan on the Upper East Side. Saddam Hussein had a place there that was a torture dungeon for his guys, his intel guys, to go find dissidents or whatever in America. They'd take them there into the basement and they'd just fucking...
See?
I mean, it's animal shit.
The world is full of evil. And here's what pisses me off, particularly about Americans, is a lot of people haven't even left those boundaries of their state, let alone the borders of the country, And then when they do leave, I've left the country before. They went to Cancun. So what, That's not leaving the country, I've lived in over 100, traveled to and worked in over 101 countries. Okay, I've been all around the planet, man. I've been everywhere, and I've had the opportunity to see how other people's live, how they're treated, what they think of us, and it's very different from what people read in the media in America.
Oh yeah.
In a lot of ways, a lot of people hate us. For example, I live in Bali, as we talked about before the show. I live in Bali. I have a home also in the Philippines, and I have a home in Panama City Beach, Florida, which is where I'm currently at. Just came in a couple of days ago. But and when we talk about freedom and police abuse, let me tell you something. My wife. Again, I mentioned before the show, my wife is Indonesian. My wife is Muslim, and we were in Hong Kong, literally walking down the street, and the police literally just walked up to her, pulled her to the alley and made her piss in a cup and do a urinalysis. Why? Just because they looked at her. And they said, hey, maybe you're on drugs. And they go through her purse, make her piss in a cup and do a urinalysis. Okay? Think about that for a minute. This is other countries.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? I can go on and on with these stories. This is not an exception. It gets worse than that, and we don't have a lot of time to get into the details.
We got all day. Real quick, though. I just got to stop and go to the bathroom.
Okay.
We'll be right back. We're back now. Before we just stopped it. That's why I didn't know that happened to you.
Twice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nuts.
It's so normal.
Crazy. But anyway, you were saying before we stopped with this that some of the things around the world, like we don't understand how lucky we are to have it the way we have it here. And I got to tell you, man, like I always try to check myself with that because it's easy to complain, and I do, about so many things going on in the country right now, just with people just not being able to talk to each other. It gets very, very exhausting, and, we all create the biggest problems we can on social media. But the basic things we're able to do every day from, waking up in the morning and having the right to go to the gym or just do what the fuck you want to do, have a job, be able to pay your bills. It's not that easy in so many countries around the world.
Yeah.
And there's random shit that can happen where the government can have total control over every facet of your life.
Social media, what you post on social media could easily land you in jail or get you deported, especially in Indonesia. You say the wrong thing in there, boom, you're out of there, and they'll find you. They'll hunt you down, look for you, They're very active about it. Unlike, us, it's like, come on over, just come on over, do what you want. Try doing that crap in another country. I don't care what it is, whether it's the Philippines, Indonesia, any country. They're not going to tolerate you overstaying your visa or sneaking into their country.
Oh, yeah.
They're not going to tolerate it. They're going to find you, and there's going to be harsh penalties. You're going to get kicked out. We're the only country that does this crap, and to our detriment at the end of the day. It's to our own detriment. The rest of the world doesn't think like we do. And are we better off? I would argue that no, we're not. America is not free. We're not free, and we're manipulating.
Why do you say that?
Well, at the end of the day, you're not free because look, even now particularly, right? If you say something that goes against, for example, we'll talk about COVID, you don't believe COVID. COVID's a conspiracy. Okay, maybe it is COVID, but it's not what it is, or they make it out to be. And you get censored, right? We saw that happen with Facebook and all these different social media sites. Got called out on it and agreed. Yeah, the government kind of told us to shut us up, shut everybody up, So who's really in charge here? Or do we really have free speech? Can you really say what you want to say? Can you really do you really have that freedom? No. The IRS has got you by your nuts, right? They're really going to get our nuts because once they have us on digital currency and that's all we have, you have lost all power, all freedom. You think about it. Have you ever noticed, I don't know when on the ticket for Spirit Airlines, when you bought the ticket, but like when I buy my ticket, for example, United Airlines, now what I'm noticing under the price is also my carbon footprint. Like that's kind of weird, They got a carbon footprint on there for the ticket that I'm going to buy. That was never there before. And why is it there now? I'll tell you why it's there now. It's conditioning. What they're doing is conditioning to the fact that you have a carbon footprint, and eventually once you get used to it, then they're going to charge you for it, right? And so what's going to happen is, look, the government might charge the airline, go, hey, you got to pay for carbon tax, but they're going to pay that cost pass that cost on to you, right? You're going to pay for that carbon tax. Yes. And so, but anyways, all of a sudden, it's another way to tax you at the end of the day. So where does it stop? Does it stop at the gas pump? Or now you pump 5 gallons of gas and you go, there's a carbon tax under there too. Because my car, I bought 5 gallons of gas, that's going to turn into this much carbon, right? So you see how this is working? It's, I don't even know how I got down on this road here, but at the end of the day, we're not in control of our lives. Everybody's got a piece of your ass. The government has a piece of your ass. The legal system has a piece of your ass. Law enforcement, your employers, you've portioned out your power to quite a few people, and you have very little power of your own. Very people are really sovereign, and those that are very wealthy, and even those don't really have full control of their lives. Even in Indonesia, which is one of the reasons I live there, just to escape all the madness from this country. But even there, I'm not really free because I still fall under the rule of the local government, and of the national government. They still have a hand on me, but I actually have a little bit more freedom there than I do here. It's kind of like, and again, I told a partner here before we did the show, I said, Bali's Indonesia is one of those last places on the earth where, you know, that life is still pretty good. And I always joke with my friends, my American friends and my expats, you know, we always giggle and laugh around the table and like, hey man, shh, don't tell all your friends, they'll come over here and wreck it for us, you know. We're living a pretty good life, you know.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that there's 2 girls earlier. It's that kind of stuff that there's no tolerance for it. And they have a very dim view, the rest of the world, of what we do. They're scratching their head going, how can you justify changing children's sex, but, you know, they're not old enough to join the military, not old enough to drink beer and drive a car. But, you know, there's just so much weirdness. The rest of the world has questions. And, you know, and I'm on that side of the world where I get to see and hear this stuff. And I don't even try to answer it. I'm just like, you know what? I don't know how to answer it. I just leave me out of this argument, man. I'm just here to live my life, enjoy what I'm doing here with my wife and my family. And that's it, you know, live in paradise, so to speak.
Right. It does feel like sometimes the whole thing is like a long reality TV show, though, because we fight over you know, some things that are very legit that maybe are a problem in society moving forward with how we go about certain issues. But we also then fight over things that are such minute little examples in our culture and make them the main thing and make them the focus of the rest of the world. And it feels like sometimes it's just some giant distraction to get everyone fucking pissing around the card table together.
Yeah, you're right. I think so too. I think a lot of it's just a distractor, you know. You know, we were talking in the car earlier about, you know, this year is kind of the year of the apocalypse. You know, when you think about it, I don't think there's going to be a 2024 election. It's not going to be a good one if there is.
Wait, what?
I don't think there's going to be a 2024 election.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't think there will be. I don't think there will be. With the way things are going.
You don't think we're going to have an election in this country?
I think what we're going to have is war, is what I think we're going to have.
You think we're going to have war in this country?
I think so.
You want to take a bet on that right now?
I'm not going to take a bet, but that's my inclination.
You know, all right, so you're not going to take a bet? Because I'll bet fucking 10 G's right now that's not happening. 100%. Yeah.
No, I think there will be. One, here's why. They're going to get rid of Trump. They're going to do something. 1, 2, and I think we're at the breaking point when it comes to politics.
Who's they?
His base, right? So those that support him, right?
No, but who's they doing this?
Well, obviously it's the opposition, right? The party on the left, the Democrats, for example. The powers that be, so forth, that are actually pulling all the strings right now. I don't think there's going to be an election. I think we're also going to be in a war with Russia by the end of the summer. Not because the Russians are bad, and I know that sounds really bad, but you know, a lot of people don't think about how did Russia get into this position in Ukraine to start with. Did they just say, oh, we're just going to invade it and take over the country? So go back into the 70s, right? NATO. When NATO first started out, 13 countries. We said, hey, we're not going to expand beyond that. We're never going to be knocking on your door, Russia. Don't worry. Here we are 30 countries later. We're on their door. And we're doing the same thing that Russia did when John
Cuban Missile Crisis.
The Cuban Missile Crisis, right? It's like, get your missiles off that island, get them off our doorstep, and we're going to war. And it did. So we did the same thing, but we didn't back off. And I don't believe that the Russians' goal is to take all of Ukraine back. It's certain provinces or portions of that country. And here's the other irony, right? So you have the Azov brigades, right? What are they? They're Nazi brigades. Literally, they're wearing swastikas, okay? And we're yelling about fascism and Nazism, yet we're supporting a Nazi fascist regime.
It's a small percentage.
It doesn't matter, right?
But,
so
I mean, we have neo-Nazis here in America,
right? And we're attacking them left and right, right? So, and we're calling everybody a fascist, a neo-Nazi,
right? We also aren't being invaded right now. I got to defend them on that because, and I'm not defending the Azov battalion is disgusting. You know, I salute whatever happens to them in war. I'm not going to feel bad, but I'm just saying, like. And I got a lot of problems with that war and the fact that there's no real effort for peace. We're funding it over and over and over again. We're funding death here. I'm with you on all that. I think that, you know, unfortunately, what comes of it is everything becomes politicized because we have involved ourselves politically in it.
Well, yeah, at the end of the day, what do we get out of it? Nothing, right? We spend a lot of money supporting this country for some very dubious reasons.
Oh, they're going to get some out of it. Who's going to rebuild that place?
Oh, absolutely, man. They're making bank with all that money we've given them so far. You know, hey, man, there's people in this country that could use that money. You know, and I mean, we give the guys in Hawaii $700. Everything got burned out here, $700. But we're sending millions and millions of our tax money to a country for a war that doesn't involve us. Why are we even involved in this thing?
I'll tell you what really sat wrong with me is when you saw Zelensky a few weeks ago in America. He's literally meeting and taking photo ops with all the leaders of all the defense companies.
Exactly.
It's like Raytheon, Lockheed, everyone. It's not even the meme writes itself, and I'm not even blaming him in that situation. I'm looking at us going, when people sit here and scream about the military industrial complex,
there it is.
There it is, man.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't get more blatant than that. And, they're making content with them, like with the nice camera shot, like, hey, like a fucking Allstate commercial. Like, they're all sitting there shaking hands, kissing babies. But they're really just funding more death in a war that is I mean, I've had Mark Turner in here who's been over there since like day one, on and off, training Ukrainian battalions and stuff.
He asked us to do a site survey. Can you kind of go over all the locations, this location and all the locations we have, and see where our guys are and give us your assessment? So we start doing that, and they were putting snipers up in a clock tower, and it's like, you've been watching Saving Private Ryan too much, it's not a good place to put a sniper. Contrary to popular belief, you don't put snipers in clock towers, right?
Why is that? Because they're easy to pick off up there?
Yeah, you're stuck up there, right? You're stuck up there, one tank rolling through takes care of everything. I mean, you've seen that in Saving Private Ryan, right? I mean, I don't know why everybody thinks that's a thing. That guy actually, he was a cool character in that movie, but he got blown away by a tank because he's up in a bell tower or whatever.
He's like, it's an unwinnable war for everyone.
Right.
These fucking two armies sit there and fight they fight for 2 weeks over 20 yards.
Yeah.
It's just death.
Yeah. And it's a racket, at the end of the day. War is a racket, so to speak. And it is. And unfortunately, I hate to, be the one to say that, but I've given...
But you profit off that racket, though, too, doing what you do, no?
Unfortunately, I do, Well, fortunately for me, I do. But it is what it is, People need my help. And look, at the end of the day, I do what I think is the right thing to do. I will not go and fight in Ukraine. I've been asked if I'd be willing to go. I was like, why? I ain't got nothing to do with us. And not only that, I don't agree with that war, okay? So there's a part of me, a moral side of me, that picks and chooses the fights I want to get involved in. If you said to me, hey, do you want to go to wherever, Yemen, and kill ISIS or Al-Qaeda, sign me up.
Fuck yeah.
You're going to pay me money, I'll go do it, because I've seen what they're capable of doing, right? And so I don't have a problem with that. Somebody's got to do it. And if you can't do it and you need me to do it, okay, if you're paying me, I'll go do it. And, God is my money. No, actually, you know what? At the end of the day, if I'm going to take a risk, I won't be paid for it because I got family too that I need to feed, right? So, but I'm going over this to help people, hopefully, and get rid of the evil that would destroy everybody else. Same thing with Afghanistan and Iraq. I've seen the evil that these people are willing to do. And most people sit, behind their computer at their TV at home, and they've just never been there. But once you've been there and you've seen it, it's like, man,
Well, I want to go back to that too, because you've been talking about Iraq a little bit, and I want to back down from my opinions that when I'm sitting across from guys like you who I respect, who were there. And I always do say this about that war as someone sitting in an armchair who didn't fight in it. The guys who go there, the guys who do the job, you guys are following orders. You're doing what you're supposed to do. I got all the respect in the world for that. And I think the military gets put in a bad position because they got to answer for decisions that happen in Washington, D.C. that they don't get to make, no matter how high up they are in many cases. But you look at that war, obviously Saddam, bad guy, like not good guy. His sons were horrible. His reign was tyrannical. He was sociopathic. At the same time, though, I do always struggle with the idea of two things. Number one, is it our job to be the world police at all times in all places? And number two, did we not end up leaving it worse than we found it? Because I would argue that as bad as he was and as awful of a person as he was and the things he would do that you laid out tragically, some of the examples of how bad it would get, it was at least more controlled than it is now, where it's just this power vacuum of almost tribes of terrorism that is ripe for the taking.
Well, exactly. And I totally agree, right? We should not be policing the rest of the world. And two, classic example, Kabul, 20 years. And what do? We hand $80 billion worth of equipment over to the Taliban. And what for what? For not.
And I always bring this argument up too. It's very true. We went in there with a historic at the time paramilitary operation. Took control of the situation. The one thing we failed to do was actually get bin Laden himself. We got to that 10 years later. And then all the resources started going to Iraq. That's where Afghanistan, you talk to everyone who's been there, and I haven't asked you about it as much to this point in our conversation, but you talk to everyone who's been there. That's where it went wrong, because it became like the little redheaded stepchild. Oh, yeah, that problem, right? Yeah. And then it builds up. The Taliban never left, right? It's still there. And then 20 years later, it's the same as it was when we left it.
Yeah, probably worse, actually.
Probably worse, yeah.
Yeah, again, look, you can't blame the military for any of that, okay?
Sure.
You got to blame who? The politicians.
Yes, I agree.
And the politicians answer to the American people, okay? So why are the American people not holding the politicians accountable? Okay, that's what I want to know. Why are we not holding them accountable? We make a lot of noise, but nothing happens. Why did those officers and Biden, who made that call in Kabul, not get hung out to dry for that? They cost more lives of more Americans, and look where we are today. And by the way, now we've got Taliban offering to go in and help Hamas fight the Israelis with our weapon systems. Like, wow.
Wait, what? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So I don't know if about a month ago, the Taliban was actually offering to come to fight on behalf of the Hamas with American systems, weapon systems, to fight the Israelis. So we're at this point now. Now we've got Hezbollah. We've got the whole place is getting ready to boil over in any minute now. Have we finished the jobs, both of them? The thing with Iraq, you're right. I understand. We never really finished the job. We just languished there. We talked a lot of talk, but nothing ever actually happened.
And with Afghanistan, you mean?
And both Iraq and Afghanistan, right? So nothing really got shut down. We still had a presence there, and people were still, particularly Americans, are still being targeted. Same thing with Afghanistan. We tried to fight the war, and sometimes I think, again, it comes back to politics. Politicians are afraid of perceptions, right? So,
of course.
So, for example, one of the issues we always had to deal with in Afghanistan is if we rolled up a bad guy, okay, all of a sudden we can't interrogate him. All you can do is interview him, and you can only interview him for 3 days, and then after 3 days, you can't do anything bad to him. You have to feed him, give him a bed, you ask him questions, you don't get the answers you want, you have to release him with all his gear and stuff, and let him go. In fact, it got to a point where when I did roll up guys, the first question out of our mouth was, are you arresting me as a terrorist or as a criminal? And what they were hoping you would say is a terrorist, because they know, okay, I'm going to get locked up for 3 days. I just shut my mouth. They're going to feed me, give me a bed to sleep in, take care of me, give me my stuff, and I get to leave. If you arrest him as a criminal, you hand him over to the Afghan National Police, A&P. That's a different story. That's going to be a bad story there, right? And so they were hoping to God it was terrorism and not criminal, right? So they started gaming it. I've actually caught guys. I'm like, you again?
Yes, hey, remember, I'm a terrorist. Get it right.
And they were literally, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, you again? I arrest guys multiple times, roll them up because we were allowed to shoot them. We couldn't interrogate them. And, this all started with John McCain and his bullshit about, interrogations don't work. I'm here to tell you right now, interrogations work.
So and you're on the bring your bucket and towel.
You do not have to do that. You don't have to pull fingernails out, all that crap. There's a different way to do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that didn't go the direction I thought.
Yeah, no.
So when you say interrogation, like good cop, bad cop routine?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
And it's psychological. Men are easy to breed psychologically.
Wait, okay. John McCain was against interrogations without torture?
Absolutely.
What the fuck was wrong with him?
Exactly, right? And I said he's a sellout.
Fine. That's fine. If you're not, we can sit here and have an argument about torture, but if you're not torturing them, what the fuck is the argument?
Right.
What does he want you to do?
Well, exactly. And that's the problem we had was now we can't do anything because of public perception, politics. God forbid you get caught in any way. You couldn't even call a guy a name. If I had a...
What?
By the way, we couldn't...
Well, who's going to know?
Wait a minute. We couldn't even call them prisoners, POWs. We had to call them pucks, personnel under control. So if I had a puck, I couldn't go, hey, motherfucker, you stupid son of a bitch. Right there, there was a chargeable offense.
Are you recording this, though? Is it on camera?
Here's the problem. The guy to your left and right now...
can report you.
And it will. You got a bunch
of calling someone a motherfucker.
You have a bunch of weenies. Yeah,
you gotta be kidding.
I'm not joking, dude. I've been to camps where I was at a camp one time. There was only, let me get this right, 9 Americans. All right, me and another paramilitary guy. The rest were staffers, okay? And we call them combat tourists. You know, they're at some embassy, you know, in Paris, and it's like, oh, I want to go to Afghanistan, right? so they get to go to a FOB, a forward operating base, out there in you know, in the Indian country, and they're out there, and they're going to do their year out there in a secure camp, protected by me and my men, my Afghans or whatever. And then they get to go, hey, I was in Afghanistan, I was in combat, I was in a war zone, right? You didn't do nothing. I remember I had this one chick walking around without a 9mm, without a pistol. And I go, you know, we had a camp, and then we had a small cantonment area inside where we all stayed, right? So it's like, you know, this is the fallback. This is Alamo. Things go bad with our own guys. If they turn on us, which they do sometimes, right? We have a little Alamo we can kind of hold up and defend ourselves. And but you never assume that you're safe. You have to assume that there's always going to be somebody, because we know we had Taliban in our ranks. We know that, okay, all the time. You go out and recruit guys, you think he's squared away, but he's actually working for the opposition, right? So you actually had Taliban in the ranks. So you had to be prepared for that. That means you carry your gun. You sleep with your gun. You got your eyes open behind your head. She's walking around, I'm like, where's your firearm? I'm against firearms.
Oh, no.
Right? It was that, and that was very common, by the way.
I'm against firearms.
Yeah.
I'm only in fucking Afghanistan.
Exactly. And I told her, I said, you know what? You carry the firearm. I don't care if you're against it. You carry the firearm to protect me and the rest of the people here.
You should have given her like a fucking machete or something.
I should have punched her in her nose, but you know, I should have threw her out there with the wolves. Go, here you go. See how you do without a knife, without a gun. You know.
Did she bring some pepper spray?
Harsh words, you know, and a little attitude, you know.
Stay back, terrorist!
freaking Karen, man. That's what you know.
Oh my god.
But. Yeah, you know, but that's the reality of it, man. What's going on out there? Man, it got so bad.
I can tell you Jim DiOrio definitely didn't follow those interrogation rules. That I can assure. Our guy Jim, who was Special Forces and then FBI, one of his jobs once he was at FBI was to be an international interrogator in these zones. There were no cameras in those cells, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and there's not. But the problem is it got so political. And you've got people like Karen who want to carry a gun. If she sees or hears that you're doing something, she's going to rat you out.
Yeah, I think he locked Karen in the closet.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure like Jim tied up people like that.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding.
we actually had a guy come out. He was an EO officer, right?
A what?
Equal opportunity, right? Sexual harassment. He gave us a sexual. Think about this. I'm at a camp with about 500 pipe hitters. There's only like nine of us, right, dudes, and
that
Karen.
Doesn't mean what you think, Alessi.
And Karen, right, and so we're like, okay,
fucking crying over here.
Okay, tonight this guy's going to show up and he's going to give you guys a class on, you know, EO and sexual harassment, and like what, you know, and we're literally in Fort Apache, man. We're in the heart of Taliban country, all around us. We're getting in firefights every morning. I'm launching mortars at the Taliban, who's launching mortars at me, you know, and I'm on combat operations.
They're holding up a bear, going, "Where did he touch you?"
Well, you know what? He actually came out and he's like counseling us on as a group. Look, you can't call each other motherfucker. You can't go, hey, bitch. You know, you can't say stuff like that. And I'm like, huh? And I'm like, I can't even say motherfucker. I was like, you know, the other night I had a guy take his night vision goggles off in the middle of a fucking firefight. And I yelled at him through my interpreter, said, put your goggles on. And he put them on, and 2 minutes later, he took them off, and I yelled at him again. He put them back on, and then finally I started calling him names. I said I had to call him names, and I had to threaten the guy because him not wearing goggles puts us all in jeopardy, right? And then the next day, I said, get that guy's name. Next day, I had him as assistant team leader out filling sandbags in broad daylight with their night vision goggles and helmets on in daylight, just shoveling some sandbags. I go, you want to be dumb? I'll make you strong, you know? But, you know, all that stuff was like foreboding. It's like, you know, you can't do that. Like, what? We're in combat. We're in combat. And these guys, that's what they don't, you know, they don't understand, you know, hey, sir, would you please put your night vision goggles on and fight, you know? No, you got to yell at, you got to put a boot in their asses, not because you hate them. It's actually because you love us and we love each other and we all want to go home together. And sometimes I got to really raise my voice and maybe put hands on you, you know? But man, we got this whole class on this thing and I was like, we're doomed, man. There's no way we're winning this war. Not with this kind of shit going on, you know? Just, you know, it's everywhere, man. And, you know, this whole, I don't know. I don't even know what to tell you about it anymore. This is why, again, I'm like, you know what? Count me out. I'm living in Bali. So, it's crazy.
Oh my God. How long have you been in Bali again?
I've been in Bali 6 years. Altogether, I've been in Indonesia about eight and a half years. I used to live in Jakarta. So yeah, it's kind of a long story how I got there. So backing up, so we asked me in the beginning. So man, we went we went a big circle.
We're coming back to the beginning now too.
So what happened was 2001. I retired from the military. I was in 3rd Special Forces Group. I was a Green Beret. I was Delta operator.
You retired in 01?
Yeah.
What month?
Right before 9/11. 6 weeks before 9/11. Yeah, July. Wow. So yeah, but at that point, I'd already seen quite a bit of combat. The unit was already in combat long before anybody else had seen any combat. You know, it's just not advertised, but it doesn't even mean nothing. So I get out, I start my own company, and 9/11 happens, and then I get recruited.
Business is booming.
Yeah, I get recruited by the government. I'm also doing a lot of consulting in the nuclear security industry, all the commercial nuclear power plants in the United States. I pretty much serviced 42 out of 64 plants, made a lot of money. 2004 G4S, Wackenhut bought my company. Why? Because it couldn't rid of the competition, because I was basically blocking them at every turn. I reincorporated. I said, yeah, you can buy this company. Take it. They took the company. I reincorporated another company doing the same thing. I said, you want to buy this one too? And so, you know, and I built it up till 2011. I sold it to another company. Concurrently, I'm working for, you know, OGA, the government.
OG, what does that stand for?
We'll call it Office of Government Affairs. How about that? That's a good
Okay.
one. The Alphabet Company, something like that.
Gotcha.
All right. So anyways, I'm still held a certain agreements. But anyways, you can read into it. So then what happened was 2011 came around, and I got in another ambush, and I had this epiphany. So I was talking to a company that said they wanted to buy my company. So I'm kind of concurrently running one company, but I'm still a warfighter downrange. And so they said, if you can get us a contract with this particular oil company, and this is what we're looking for, we'll buy your company. And I thought about, you know what, this might be a way out of the war for me, because I'm getting a little long in the tooth, you know, and I'm getting tired of getting ambushed in firefights, you know, and I got kids and family. So what happened was I got ambushed one night pretty bad. And I remember sitting there in the vehicle thinking, if I get through this one, I said, I'm it. I'm hanging up the guns. I'm done. Going to go home and, you know, do my other stuff, security, blah, 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 blah. Well, at the same time, I got discovered by Discovery Channel. Imagine that. And
another one.
Right?
How many people walk in here with Discovery Channel
stories? You know, so I'm on Discovery Channel, and I was on a show called One Man Army. Apparently, I did pretty well, and I got a call from NBC going, "Hey, we got another we got a TV show we're making called Stars and Stripes. Would you be interested in trying out?" And I thought, well, man, I didn't think this would happen again. I just thought it was a one-off, you know. And so next thing you know, out of 2,000 applicants, I think I was one of 8 selected to be on Stars and Stripes with Terry Crews, Eva Torres, Dean Cain.
Oh, wow.
Chris Kyle. You know, there's quite a few of us on there.
Wait, like American Sniper, Chris Kyle?
Yeah. And
no shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, anyways, wow, now I'm going to be in Hollywood. So I ended up being in Hollywood, sold my company, the second company, and doing pretty well for myself. Spent a couple years doing movies, TV shows.
Would you, when you say that, like actually in the movies?
Yeah. Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah.
What were you in?
You can look it up, man. I was on FX, NBC. I was on Legit Librarians. I was with another company called Zulu 7. We made a bunch of zombie movies. Anyways, just...
You were a zombie in the movies?
Actually, on one of them I turned into a zombie, right? I was like the good guy who got bit and then turned into this raging lunatic.
With the handlebar?
I had everything, man. Yeah, and the big veins sticking out of their heads. Bigger than the ones I already have. And, but anyways, I did that for a few years, and it just didn't feel right, you know.
I can't see you on movie sets for too long, man.
Man, I wanted to kill people, man. It's like, you know, these people are so pretentious. Not all of them. There was actually some really good people. I'm not gonna say that, but some of them was like, Jesus Christ, Jiminy, you know. And it's hard work. It really was hard work. I'm not gonna lie, you know. And I had a lot of respect for people in that industry, but just for me personally, I felt like, I'm faking the funk. This is not what I do. I do the real thing. I don't pretend to do the real thing, right? Like these guys. So I got this calling, and I ended up going to Hong Kong and became part of a security detail that ran. I eventually became one of the senior leaders, I guess, if you will, for a protection detail for a multi-billionaire investment banker over there, and very well-known fellow. I won't mention his name, but anyways, I did that for a while, and then that's where I met my wife, who's Indonesian. She went back to Indonesia, and then I followed her back to Indonesia.
Gotcha. That's how it goes.
The question earlier was, why'd you go to Indonesia? Because I was following some trim, And so, I followed her over there, and we started hanging out, running around, just traveling the country, sightseeing, and one thing led to another. I saw some opportunities, business opportunities, and I expanded on that. And then before you know it, I'm partners with another billionaire in Jakarta for a little while. That didn't quite work out.
Well, is there like a phone book of mercenaries around the world? Like if I'm, Dictator X or President Y, can I just like whip out a book and be like, oh, let's go to C's, Comstock, call them up? Like, is that how it works?
No, it's a network, right? It's
a network.
It's certain people. No, there's no website,
1-800
assassins are us. There's nothing like that. It's basically a network, and people, they come to you and they go, hey, I got a job. Would you be interested? And so it kind of works like that.
Whose car are we taking?
Yeah, right. Whose car are we taking? Exactly.
That's hilarious. But we jump forward to that. I want to come back to your whole like post-military career and how you got into some of these war zones and stuff. But we had been talking a little bit ago now about the beginning of your career and you going through all the schooling and everything. And what I wanted to get to was where you ended up first. So this is now like, I'm guessing like 1983, 1984. You go to your Delta team, you get assigned to whatever team that is. You're not allowed to say where it was or how big it was for security reasons. But is it the kind of thing where you're immediately being deployed on special missions, or how did it work?
Yeah.
What was the ramp up?
So one thing about the unit, okay, tier one, what does that mean? Everybody goes, they're tier one, they're tier two, whatever. Tier one. Nobody really knows what that means. I'll tell you what it means. Tier one means if a unit is designated as tier one, they're always, even in peacetime, in a constant state of warfare, and they're being funded as such, right? So Delta is tier one. It's always considered, it always has its war footing. It's always considered in a state of war because they're always running ops, things like that, of different levels, okay? A nuclear powered submarine is a tier one asset. Certain airplanes are tier one assets, right? And then you have tier two. What would be a tier two asset? Green Berets, Navy SEALs. I call them vanilla SEALs, right? Not SEAL Team 6. They would be considered black. They would be tier one. But the other vanilla teams that are not special operations, if you will, are considered tier two. Rangers, some of the Ranger battalions are tier one because they support some of the other spec ops units. So there's different levels. So tier one, tier two, tier three, right? And because I was in that organization, we're in a constant state of war. So we're doing operations all the time. May not always be war fighting, but it's something related to that space.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.